It's no question. I love Section 8, and I'm going to answer a couple of your frequently asked questions in this video. Let's start with the basics. Okay, what is Section 8? What is a Section 8 property? So essentially, a Section 8 property is a rental unit that participates in the Federal Housing Choice Voucher Program. And this essentially means that the tenants in these properties receive rental assistance from the government in order to help cover their housing costs. No, there is not like a section of a city where they say, these are the Section 8 houses. There is no one that comes and says, this is a Section 8 house and this is a Section 8 house, okay? The way a property becomes a Section 8 rental is simply once you find a tenant who is a voucher recipient, you are going to fill out some paperwork with them, submit that to Section 8, and then Section 8 will come out and do an inspection. You'll go through a certification program, and that is how the rental unit becomes a Section 8 property. Any property can be a Section 8 property. It can be the one-bedroom house down the street. It can be the $1 million mansion around the corner. Okay, if that house passes the Section 8 inspection, it has a tenant with a voucher that's made an agreement to move in there, it becomes a Section 8 rental property. I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's see. How does the Section 8 program work? Okay, so under the Section 8 program, which is governed by the HUD portion of the government, eligible tenants will receive vouchers that subsidize a portion of their rent. So landlords who participate in the program agree to accept these vouchers as payment for rent. It is really that simple. So the Section 8 program has a very long waiting list in some areas, especially the area where we invest. So we have way more people with vouchers than we have properties, which is why we need to really partner with you guys. But anyway, they get on the waiting list for Section 8, they fill out the application, they do background checks, things like that. And then once they are accepted into the program, they get a voucher, and that voucher does come with the timeline. So within that timeline, they're going to be reaching out to landlords. Some are already Section 8 landlords, some are not. So let's say if it's you and you're new to Section 8, if you have a property, they'll come to you, say, hey, I'd like to rent your property. I do have a voucher. Okay, you're going to fill out something called a HAP. Okay, that is a housing assistance payment form, and that's going to be an agreement between you and the Public Housing Authority, stating that you will accept rent payments or a portion of the rent payment to come from the Public Housing Authority instead of coming from the tenant. Okay, if you want to know more about it, I can give you a couple more details, but I don't want to spend all the time on one question. But usually they take about 30% of the tenant's income, and this could be different for different public housing agencies, but authorities, but this is the one where I am. They're usually going to ask the tenant to pay about 30% of their income. And what I like about that is, let's say if someone loses a job or if someone gets hurt and they can't work or they work less hours, it is always going to be based on 30% of what they earned. So if they earned $100,000, okay, it'll be based off of that. If they earn $10, it'll be based off of that. So it's always a percentage of their income that they're paying, not a percentage of your rent. Okay. This is an intentional pause because I know they're going to break this video up a little bit. All right, let's see. What are the advantages of Section 8 investments? For me, there are several benefits to working with the Section 8 program, and some of them for me would be like the guaranteed rental income. And I always use the example of when we went through COVID-19. So I've always been the Section 8 girl, right, in real estate investing. And a lot of times at RIAs or conferences, when I'm speaking about Section 8, you know, people would turn their nose up. Oh, you do that? You work with those people? Okay. But when COVID hit and all of the memorandums came out and tenants were no longer paying rent, I still got my rent check every single month on time from the Section 8 program. And when tenants were losing their jobs or they couldn't go back to work, cool, Section 8, if their income is zero, they pay 30% of zero, which is zero. So Section 8 stepped in and paid all of the rent. And so you can imagine 2020 was a busy year for me in terms of coaching and mentoring, because all of the people who were turning their nose up at me, now they want to come and learn how to turn their properties into Section 8 properties and the processes and the compliance and things like that. And I was happy to help, but I hope that helped a lot of people understand. Anyway, I'm not going to get into my ego. I'll just say I like the guaranteed rent payments. There we go. Another thing is lower vacancy rates. So the demand for Section 8 housing far exceeds the supply, far exceeds it. So finding a tenant is never an issue, especially if you use our vetting process. So if you partner with me, we already use it. Yeah, so we almost never have vacancies, and they tend to stay longer. If you look at the statistics for Section 8, most Section 8 tenants stay like 7 or 8 years. We like that. We don't want turnover. We like stability in our real estate portfolios. So that is another thing, the stability. It's reliable, it's government-backed payments. And you have to remember too, not only does it offer stability for us, but it offers stability for the families. And I think that's the goal for any parent. You want to have stable housing for your children. So there's many, many more advantages that we can talk about. If you want to book a call with me and talk about partnering, we can talk about it. But I don't want to spend too much time on one question. Maybe I will do another video where I just deep dive into them. Okay, let's see. The next question was, are Section 8 tenants more likely to damage property? That's interesting. So contrary to popular belief, it is the opposite. They are actually less likely to damage a property if you're vetting and screening correctly. They are no more likely to damage a property than anyone else. And they also have like other consequences, right? Like if they're not doing right by the landlord, they could lose their voucher, meaning not only can they not live in your house, they can't live in any house with Section 8 anymore. So that to me gives me an extra boost of confidence, but also just the screening and vetting. I can't say that enough. And any tenant, be it Section 8 or not, you really need to screen and vet. But statistically, and this is going off of what the HUD federal government, their research has shown they are no more likely to damage a property than any other renter. Oh, and then remember, hold them to the same standard. Listen, okay, let's talk about this real quick. This is more talking about the lease agreement and how the paperwork works. You have two agreements at that point. You have a lease agreement between you and the tenant. So they are still held to the standard of your lease agreement, just like anyone else. So let's say if like I've had people, try to sneak in pets. We lay out our policy for pets, so cool. You're either going to have to pay that rent deposit, or I'm going to give you a notice to quit, meaning either you get rid of the pet or you got to go. You hold them to the same standard as the lease. Okay, then you have a separate agreement between you and Section 8, which just simply says you're going to be accepting payments on behalf of the tenant from us in X amount. Okay, so there's two agreements going on. So the tenant still has to follow the lease agreement just like any other tenant. Okay, all right, sorry. Digress. Will I have trouble finding quality Section 8 tenants? So you have to remember the Section 8 tenants, they already undergo a rigorous screening process to qualify for the rental assistance. So they have to meet like certain income and eligibility requirements. And then some Section 8 tenants, they also have to go through like background checks and work with case managers and things like that. So there's multiple touches on these tenants before they even become eligible for the voucher. That said, I think the key word here is quality tenants. So when I looked up my local housing authority just a couple of days ago, because someone asked me this in a frequently asked question, there were 2,570 voucher recipients looking for a place to live. Okay. At this time, we're buying 9 doors this month. So it's 9 units compared to 2,700 people who need a place to stay. But you have to remember our screening process is very, very rigorous. While a lot of people allow the property manager to find tenants, we don't. We do it ourselves because I've been doing it for so long. I know what I'm looking for. I kind of understand now exactly who I want to be our ideal tenant. So I do that part for us, and it is a very rigorous screening process, but it works out. Our tenants stay, they take great care of the properties. We have excellent relationships with them. And of course, then we do a warm transfer to property management. I can't stress enough the importance of vetting and screening. If you need help with that, I definitely love to partner with you or have a conversation with you about it. I definitely feel like I figured the game out. I know what to do.